Imagine living in a country where every drop of water is precious, a place so vulnerable that one drought, one political disagreement, or one natural disaster could leave millions of people without clean water. Now, what if I told you that this isn't a distant desert land, but Singapore? Yes, the modern gleaming city known for its skyscrapers, spotless streets, and booming economy once faced a looming water crisis that threatened its very survival. But here's the twist. Instead of collapsing under pressure, Singapore transformed this crisis into an opportunity. Today, it is recognized worldwide as a global leader in water management, turning scarcity into security. So how did Singapore, an island with almost no natural water resources, solve its looming water crisis? That's the story we'll uncover in this video. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because the lessons Singapore offers are not just about water. They are about vision, leadership, and resilience that can inspire every nation, and even each of us in our daily lives. Chapter 1. The Thirsty Island. To understand Singapore's journey, we need to go back to the mid-20th century. Singapore is a small tropical island, just over 700 square kilometers, about half the size of London. It has no natural lakes, few rivers, and almost no underground aquifers. Rain falls generously in the tropics, but without reservoirs or catchment areas, most of it flowed straight into the sea. When Singapore gained independence in 1965, this lack of water wasn't a minor inconvenience, it was a national threat. The young nation relied heavily on water imported from Johor, a Malaysian state just across the causeway. Two major water agreements guaranteed supply, but everyone knew these were temporary lifelines, not permanent solutions. Think about it. Every glass of water, every shower, every drop used in factories and hospitals depended on another country's goodwill. For leaders trying to build confidence in a fragile new nation, this was deeply unsettling. What if drought struck Malaysia? What if prices rose beyond affordability? Or worse, what if political disputes turned off the taps? This wasn't just about convenience. Without water, industries would grind to a halt, hygiene would collapse, and health would be at risk. Even the dream of attracting foreign investors, vital for survival, seemed uncertain if the country couldn't guarantee a stable water supply. Singapore was like a household with no well of its own, borrowing buckets from a neighbor every single day. Independence meant pride and self-determination. But in this most basic need, the island remained painfully exposed. For its leaders, it was clear. Solving the water problem wasn't optional. It was a matter of survival. Chapter 2. The Turning Point. By the late 1960s, Singapore's leaders had to face a sobering truth. Without water security, there could be no true independence. A nation could survive without oil, it could survive without gold, but without water, life itself would be at risk. This realization shifted water from being a utility issue to becoming a matter of national security. It wasn't just about keeping taps running, it was about hospitals functioning, industries producing, and families living with dignity. It was about the survival of an entire people. Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's founding prime minister, understood this more clearly than anyone else. His famous words, "Every other policy has to bend at the knees for our water survival," were not exaggeration. He knew that unless Singapore secured its own water supply, its independence could be held hostage at any moment. From this urgency came one of the boldest national strategies in modern history. Singapore didn't treat water as a short-term crisis to be patched up. Instead, it launched a long-term, multi-decade plan that would evolve with the nation itself. This vision demanded not only massive infrastructure projects, but also research, innovation, and above all, a shift in the mindset of its citizens. It was the start of a journey that combined political will, science, and public trust. Instead of waiting for emergencies to strike, Singapore built a roadmap that looked decades into the future, when most countries couldn't see beyond their next election cycle. That was the turning point. From then on, water would no longer be treated as a vulnerability. It would become a symbol of resilience, a challenge that would shape the nation's destiny. Chapter 3. The Four National Taps. The genius of Singapore's water strategy can be summed up in one simple but powerful idea: the four national taps. Think of them as four different lifelines that together ensure the nation never goes thirsty. The first tap is imported water. For decades, Singapore relied almost entirely on Malaysia for its water. Today, those agreements still exist, but the difference is dramatic. Imported water is now just one part of the system, not the entire backbone. This reduces vulnerability and provides breathing room while the other taps take center stage. The second tap is local catchment water. Instead of letting rain vanish into the sea, Singapore turned its entire landscape into a giant water collector. Reservoirs were built across the island, and urban planning was redesigned so even drains and canals feed fresh rainfall into storage. Picture a city where every heavy downpour is no longer a nuisance but an opportunity, a chance to stock up for the future. The third tap is the famous NEWater. Once seen as radical, it has become a source of national pride. Wastewater is purified using advanced membranes and ultraviolet light until it surpasses international drinking standards. This isn't just recycling, it's reinvention. NEWater proved that with science, imagination, and trust, even the dirtiest water can be reborn as the cleanest. The fourth tap is desalinated water. With cutting-edge plants, Singapore takes advantage of its most abundant resource, the surrounding sea. By removing salt, seawater becomes drinkable, providing a reliable safety net during droughts or rising demand. By weaving these four taps together, Singapore created a diversified water portfolio. No single source controls the nation's fate. Instead, resilience, innovation, and foresight flow through every drop. Chapter 4. NEWater, From Waste to Wonder. If there's one invention that truly changed Singapore's water story, it's NEWater. When the idea was first introduced, that wastewater could be purified and turned back into drinking water, many people shuddered. The thought of drinking used water was enough to make anyone uneasy. But Singapore knew that bold solutions were the only way forward. The technology behind NEWater is nothing short of remarkable. Used water goes through a three-step purification process: microfiltration, reverse osmosis, and ultraviolet disinfection. By the end, every impurity, viruses, bacteria, even dissolved salts, is stripped away. What remains is water so pure that it actually exceeds the World Health Organization's drinking water standards. But Singapore understood that science alone wouldn't be enough. Winning public trust was just as important as the technology itself. Leaders led by example, drinking NEWater on live television to prove it was safe. During National Day celebrations, bottles of NEWater were distributed proudly as symbols of resilience. Schools organized tours to treatment plants so children could see with their own eyes how wastewater was transformed. Slowly, skepticism gave way to confidence, and confidence turned into pride. Today, NEWater is more than just a water source, it's a national icon. It currently supplies up to 40% of Singapore's total water demand and is projected to cover over half the nation's needs by 2060. Beyond numbers, NEWater represents something bigger: the courage to challenge taboos, the determination to embrace innovation, and the resilience to turn weakness into strength. In Singapore, wastewater didn't remain waste. It became a wonder, a lifeline, and a lesson to the world that with vision, even the impossible can be achieved. Chapter 5. Desalination. Turning the sea into sweet water. When you look at Singapore on a map, you see it surrounded on all sides by the vast blue waters of the sea. And yet, for decades, that water was out of reach, salty, undrinkable, and seemingly useless for daily life. But where others saw an obstacle, Singapore saw potential. The solution came in the form of desalination, the process of removing salt and minerals from seawater to make it safe to drink. In the early 2000s, Singapore opened its first large-scale desalination plant in Tuas, marking a new era. Suddenly, the island had tapped into an unlimited source of water, the ocean itself. Of course, desalination doesn't come cheap. It is energy-intensive, requiring powerful systems to push seawater through special membranes that filter out the salt. But Singapore wasn't deterred. Instead, it invested heavily in research and technology to make desalination more efficient, exploring renewable energy and next-generation membranes to cut costs and reduce environmental impact. Today, desalinated water provides up to 30% of Singapore's water needs, and more plants are being built to increase that share in the future. The goal isn't to rely entirely on the sea, but to ensure that, even in the harshest drought or driest season, taps will never run dry. Desalination is not perfect, it demands energy and resources, but it represents something vital, a safety net, a guarantee that Singaporeans will always have water, no matter the climate or politics. By turning the surrounding sea into sweet, drinkable water, Singapore once again proved its ability to turn limitation into opportunity, securing yet another pillar of its water resilience. Chapter 6: A Nation of Water Savers. For all the impressive technology, reservoirs, desalination, and NEWater, Singapore's leaders understood one critical truth. Machines alone cannot save water. People had to be part of the solution. If citizens wasted water at home, or industries used it carelessly, even the most advanced systems would struggle. That's why Singapore launched a nationwide effort, not just to supply water, but to teach the value of every drop. From the 1970s onwards, water conservation became a central theme of daily life. Public campaigns filled TV screens, posters, and radio airwaves with reminders. Take shorter showers, don't leave taps running, and fix leaks immediately. These weren't just slogans, they became habits. Schools played a powerful role. Children learned early that water was precious, often visiting treatment plants and reservoirs as part of their education. By shaping young minds, Singapore built a generation that grew up respecting water as both a resource and a responsibility. The government also used economics as a teacher. Water bills were carefully structured to reflect the real cost of treatment and delivery. As usage increased, so did the price per unit. This made waste expensive and conservation rewarding, ensuring households and businesses alike paid attention to how much they consumed. Industries, too, were encouraged to recycle water within their factories. Over time, many companies developed systems to reuse water multiple times before discharging it, reducing strain on the national supply. Slowly but steadily, saving water stopped being a government policy and became a national culture. In Singapore, conservation isn't seen as a burden. It's viewed as common sense, part of everyday responsibility. That cultural shift may be the most powerful achievement of all, because technology can change, but habits built over generations last forever. Chapter 7: Smart Management and Technology. While much of Singapore's water success is visible in its reservoirs and desalination plants, the real magic happens behind the scenes. The island has quietly built one of the most advanced water management systems in the world, turning every challenge into an opportunity. Across the nation, sensors work around the clock, monitoring water quality in real time. These systems can detect even the smallest changes, like a rise in pollutants or a sudden drop in flow, allowing immediate responses before problems spread. Smart meters installed in homes and businesses track water use with precision, helping people understand their habits and encouraging responsible consumption. The physical network is just as impressive. Storm drains, canals, and reservoirs are all interconnected in a massive web designed to capture every drop of rain. Instead of letting heavy tropical downpours overwhelm the streets and flow uselessly into the sea, Singapore channels this water into reservoirs where it can later be treated and used. Even potential disasters are flipped into opportunities. In many places, flooding is a costly threat. In Singapore, floods are seen as temporary surges of supply. Stormwater is quickly collected, purified, and folded back into the national system. This level of integration doesn't happen by chance. It's the result of decades of planning, investment, and innovation. By combining cutting-edge technology with smart urban design, Singapore transformed water management into water mastery. It's a reminder that true resilience isn't just about building big solutions. It's about creating a system where nothing goes to waste, where every drop has a purpose, and where foresight ensures security for generations to come. Chapter 8: Exporting Knowledge. Singapore's water journey could have ended with self-sufficiency, but instead of stopping there, the nation took the bold step of turning its hard-earned expertise into a global resource. What began as a desperate search for survival has now become a thriving export industry and a source of international influence. Every year, leaders, engineers, and scientists from around the world travel to Singapore to study how this small island managed to conquer one of humanity's greatest challenges. They come not just to see the technology, but to understand the policies, culture, and long-term vision that made it work. At the center of this knowledge sharing is the Singapore International Water Week, a global summit where experts exchange ideas, showcase breakthroughs, and build partnerships. Here, Singapore positions itself as a hub of innovation, a place where the world's water future is shaped. But it doesn't end at conferences. Singapore-based companies and agencies now work abroad, helping cities in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia build their own water resilience. From designing desalination plants in the Middle East to advising African nations on rainwater harvesting, Singapore's fingerprints can be found across the globe. This is more than just business. It's a transformation of identity. The nation that once feared running dry now sells solutions to others. A former weakness has become a strength and a source of pride. In a world where nearly 2 billion people face water stress, Singapore's experience isn't just valuable, it's vital. By exporting its knowledge, the island proves that even the smallest countries can make the biggest impact when they lead with innovation and foresight. Chapter 9. The bigger picture? When we step back from the details, Singapore's water journey becomes more than a story about taps, pipes, or even technology. It is, at its heart, a story about vision and resilience. Think about how most countries react to problems. Too often, action comes only when crisis strikes, when rivers dry up, when prices soar, when people are already suffering. Singapore chose a different path. It acted before it was too late. Leaders didn't wait for desperation. They planned decades ahead, building systems that would serve not just one generation, but many to come. And while many governments around the world struggle with the short-term pressures of election cycles, Singapore dared to think long-term. Water strategies were mapped out for 30, 40, even 50 years into the future. That kind of foresight is rare, and it is the reason why Singapore avoided disaster. Perhaps the most striking lesson is in mindset. Where most people saw wastewater as useless, Singapore saw it as an opportunity. Where others might dismiss seawater as undrinkable, Singapore turned it into a lifeline. Instead of framing scarcity as a weakness, the nation transformed it into strength. This courage to think differently, to question assumptions, and to embrace innovation is what turned a looming crisis into a global success story. It proves that survival isn't about size or resources, it's about determination and imagination. The bigger picture is this. Singapore's water story is not just about water, it's about showing the world that with the right mindset, even the most fragile nation can become a global leader in resilience. And that lesson extends far beyond water. It's about how we all choose to face the challenges of tomorrow. Chapter 10. Lessons for the world and for us. Singapore's water story isn't just for Singaporeans, it's a blueprint for the world and a reminder for each of us in our daily lives. At its core, it teaches lessons about survival, innovation, and responsibility that anyone can apply. First, don't depend on one source. For Singapore, that meant building 4 national taps so no single crisis could cut off supply. For us, it's a reminder that relying on one paycheck, one industry, or even one habit can be risky. Diversity builds resilience. Second, think long-term. Short-term fixes may patch problems, but they rarely solve them. Singapore's leaders planned 30 to 50 years ahead, ensuring future generations would be secure. In our own lives, whether it's saving money, caring for our health, or preparing for family needs, the same principle holds true. Third, technology works best when paired with trust. NEWater succeeded not just because the science was sound, but because leaders convinced people to believe in it. That's a lesson for any innovation, whether it's clean energy, healthcare, or education. Progress requires both facts and faith. Fourth, every drop matters. Small acts, fixing leaks, shorter showers, recycling water, added up to a cultural shift in Singapore. In the same way, small choices in our lives, eating better, saving a little daily, treating people with kindness, can create massive change over time. And finally, perhaps the most powerful lesson of all, being small is no excuse for staying weak. Singapore had limited land, no natural resources, and a vulnerable start. Yet today, it's a global leader in water resilience. It proves that size doesn't define strength. Mindset does. That's a lesson worth carrying with us wherever we live. Conclusion: from scarcity to strength. And so we arrive at the end of Singapore's remarkable journey. A nation once on the brink of a crippling water crisis, now standing as a global model of water resilience. What makes this story extraordinary is not just the technology, but the vision behind it. From catching every drop of rain in reservoirs, to pioneering NEWater, to harnessing the sea through desalination, and embedding conservation into daily culture. Singapore proved that survival can be transformed into success. This achievement wasn't luck. It was the product of long-term planning, bold innovation, and unwavering determination. Leaders treated water not as a utility, but as a lifeline. Citizens embraced their role, proving that when an entire nation works together, even the impossible can be achieved. And that's the bigger truth for all of us. Problems, no matter how overwhelming, can be solved if we face them head-on. Sometimes the very weakness we fear most becomes a strength that defines our future. Singapore's water crisis was once its greatest vulnerability. Today, it is its greatest lesson to the world. So the next time you turn on your tap and see clear, safe water flowing, pause for a moment. Think of Singapore and remember what determination, foresight, and unity can accomplish. Now I'll turn it over to you. Should countries facing water stress adopt Singapore's model, or does every nation need its own unique path? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful lessons from around the world, and hit the bell so you won't miss what's next. Because the world is full of stories like this, stories that can shape how we live, think, and build the future together.